Okay, so welcome to today's session, and what we are going to look at today is just an introduction to Pyspark. So that's basically what we are going to look at. Okay, so first of all, I'll open the Pyspark website, so the documentation site, and that will be this site. So spark.apache.org, then we get the docs. I'll also share this with you in the chat so that you can have access to it. So open that website. So this will be our reference site to Pyspark, and then what I'll do is I'll add it here to our class notebook as a reference. Okay, so we have that link as our reference. Then I'll connect my notebook, and then I'll proceed on and I'll install Pyspark again, because each time I reconnect my session I'll have to install Pyspark, and that's the reason as to why I'm maintaining this code path. Then I'll run that cell once I'm connected. It will install Pyspark again. And as Pyspark is installing, we'll look at the first thing we need to do after installing Pyspark. So after installation, so let me click on getting started. We have installation, and I'll go to the installation part. So we don't need this part that much, so I'll go to the next part, which is data frame, and this will be our first reference. So after I've installed Pyspark, the first thing we need to do is we need to instantiate a Pyspark session. And how do we do this? So we will have this from Pyspark.sql import Spark session. So we import Spark session from Pyspark. So I'll comment this out. And then after importing Spark session, what we usually do next is we create a Spark session. So here we'll have Spark being equal to Spark session dot builder, then get or create. Then inside this bracket, what you are going to do is you are going to maybe name your Spark session. So here I can say something like may underscore ml underscore intake. Then I can run that, and this will instantiate my Spark session. So let me check this again, and I'll have to remove this. So let's run that and see if everything will be okay. Okay, so our Spark session has been created. The next thing we need to do is we need to import our data. So I'll give you 1 minute to copy this code and instantiate your Spark session, and then we can proceed on from there. Okay, I think this is zoomed in. Let me try zoom in even more. So hope that's fine. That should be okay. Okay, so hope you are done with this. So the next thing we need to do is we need to get data, and the data source that I'll use is an online data source. So maybe I can use GitHub, whereby we can maybe get the data directly into our Jupyter notebooks. So let me open GitHub and then search for a data set that we might use. So I'll search for something like big data, then I'll share the link with you in the chat section. Then I'll check for CSV files. Let me check for code, then I'll see if I can get a CSV file. Or let's use the SCI library. I'm trying to get some free data sources that we can get directly. So if we can get one, let's simply use what is here. So what I'll want you to do is go to this part of Google Data Studio and check this part. So we have these 4 sample data sets. So what we can import is the California housing test data set, for example. So how do we do that? So if we go to the documentation here, you can see we have this code for creating data frames. So we have df being equal to spark.create data frames, but for us we need to read CSV files. So you can click on selecting and accessing data, and we have functions here that we can use to get that. But let's stick to this first part up here, so data frame creation. So for the data frame creation, I'll copy this code here, and then we'll go back to our code. So we will have spark.create data frame. Then I can delete some stuff here, and then I can copy this path that we have here, and then I'll paste it here. So I'll close this, and then I can run this, and then we can confirm if this gets our data. So we need to specify our schema. So there is an easy way in which we can get this data. So just give me a minute. Let me open the code file that I usually use for class trainings. Because not everything that you will be looking for will be here in the documentation website. Okay, it's not loading. Let me check if I can get another file. Yeah, so we have this. So this is the code that we usually use. So instead of having spark.create data frame, so we will have spark.read._csv for reading files, and then we can check our df. So to check our df, we usually type in the data frame name itself, or we can copy what is here. So you just type in the data frame as it is, and then we can run that. Let me share this in the chat section before we proceed. So that's what we have. So this is a data frame, but I don't think it's in the correct format, but we will confirm that. Okay, so since our headers are not correct here, what I can add is I can say something like headers should be equal to true. Let me add that, and here I can type in df.show so that we can see if we are going to get a data frame that shows the kind of data that we have. Yeah, so I believe this should be the correct format now. So this is how you import datasets. So you use spark.read.csv, and this will read in big files. So for this file that we are using, so this file sample, it's kind of small, but if you get a file that is big, you can still use this code to get that data. So once we've loaded our data set, so what do we usually create next? So what we usually create next is a temporary view. So we create a temporary SQL view. So you all know what views are. So up here we have our table, which is the df now, named df. And then down here, for us to like query this table, we need to create a view that has this data. So how do we do that? So I'll give my view a name. So I'll say something like df underscore SQL, then df underscore SQL. That should be my view name. So this should be in quotation marks. Okay, so that will be my view name. So what I'll do is I'll type in df dot create. So let me remove this first. So df dot create or replace temporary view, and then I'll open brackets and then I'll type in my temporary view name in there. So this will be my temporary SQL view, and then I can run that. So I have my temporary view now here, which is named df SQL. So before I can give you a chance to like copy this, we need to like understand what's the SQL syntax. So SQL code syntax for Pyspark. So for Pyspark, the first thing we usually create is we type in spark.sql. okay, so after we've typed in spark.sql, we can open quotation marks in here, and inside the quotation marks, so we write in our SQL query. Okay, and after typing in our SQL query, we can go ahead and close the quotation marks, and then here at the end we can just type in .show, then open brackets to visualize the output of this SQL query. So this is basically the syntax for Spark codes. Okay, so let me add spaces here and see if I'm going to get what I need. Yeah, so this is the syntax that we usually follow when writing in our SQL queries. So I'm going to show you a sample, and we are going to see the final output that we will have. But before that, I want you all to create your temporary view. So that is the df SQL, and then we can proceed on and maybe do some analysis on this data that we have here. Yeah, so copy this. So hope you have this. I can share this in the chat for those who are not yet done with that code part, and then those who are done with that can proceed on to this part. So 2 minutes you work on that, and then we can proceed. Okay, so I guess we can proceed because this code part is quite small, and what we will start with is our data exploration. So what I'll do here is I'll type in spark.sql. so this is my code part. Yes, questions? Yes, Belinda.
Hi, could you just scroll up a little bit before? Yes,
Oh,
right
okay.
there.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, that's all. You can
Okay,
continue.
we can proceed. That's okay. So what we are going to do first here is we are going to see the kind of data we have. So I'll type in spark.sql, open brackets, then I'll type in my triple quotation marks, and then I'll close them, and then in here I'll type in my code. So this will be my SQL query. So I'll have select, then star, I want to select all columns. From, then we will have df underscore sql, then I'll limit it to 5 rows only. Then here at the end I'll type in dot show. So that's my SQL code here that I'm running in Python and Pyspark. So here you can see we've got our output. So we have 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. So we have 9 columns, and the number of rows that we've returned are the first 5 rows. So we have 1 2 3 4 5. We've got 5 rows that we've returned here. So what can you do with SQL? So you know the power of SQL, and you know there is a lot that you can accomplish when using SQL. So we are going to create some codes here. So for example, like for the median household age, so we can get the median, mean, and the maybe standard deviation, so things like that from that column. So let's start with that. So I'll copy the code that we have up here, and then I'll try create some queries here. So I'll remove the limit part here, and then we can select specific columns here. So I'll do something like select count star. I want to know the number of records that I have in this data. So maybe I can add that comment here, which is get the number of records in the data. So here I'll have select count star from data, so from your data, then I can run that. So I'll get the total number of records that we have in this data, and you can see we have 3,000 records in total. Okay, another thing we can do is, okay, so let me not be fast. So first of all, copy these two queries and then run them on your side. and then we can proceed on from there. So I'll leave this part open, or maybe I can, since I've zoomed in a lot, I'll leave this full for you guys, and then for this second part you are going to just add the count star part. So copy that in the next 3 minutes and then we can proceed. Yes, Belinda.
Sorry to interrupt again. I was just wondering if you could again scroll up a bit. I think I missed a code. That's why I'm getting
So you're having an error? Okay.
Yes.
This part. So what's the error message saying?
It's saying just okay. Sorry. Analysis exception something.
So maybe I can display a sample error here. So if I type in something like this and maybe I remove this path part, then I run this, so you can see I get an error here. So what's this last part saying? So here you can see cannot create a path from an empty string. So what's yours saying, this last part here?
Okay, it's saying unresolved relation df underscore sql false.
Oh, okay, so I know where the error is. So the error should be on this part. So unresolved.
Yes, I think that I did that.
Yeah, so this is the part that you are missing. So you need to add this part. Then note we have, this is small c, capital R, O, capital R, and then capital T and capital V. So those are some of the things you need to note.
I'm curious in it's saying Dataframe object has not attribute.
Dataframe object has no attribute.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry. It's okay. Sorry. Misspelled something. Sorry. You can proceed.
Okay, so everything is working fine now.
Yes.
Okay, that's fine then. Yeah, so this is getting the count. So I'll share maybe 2 more examples on some of the SQL queries we can write, and then I'll give you a chance to experiment with these. So I'll maybe use the total number of bedrooms. So maybe I can create a question here, like what is the average number of total bedrooms. So how do we get this? So I'll type in spark.sql. So do we have a categorical column here? So we have none. So yeah, it means we can't group by. So I'll have select. Let me add the quotation marks first. So these are 3 quotation marks, and then I'll have select, then avg, so total bedrooms as average, then average underscore total bedrooms, so from df underscore sql, and then I can type in .show here at the end, and then run this to confirm if everything is okay. So here you can see the average total number of bedrooms is equal to 529.95. So there are many more things you can do with SQL, and depending with the kind of data you've uploaded here, you can go ahead and analyze your data using these scripts here. And you can see these scripts that I'm typing in here roughly takes around 1 second to run. So if you had big data in here, so let's say for example up here I had uploaded a dataset that is quite big in size. So if I was to load it using pandas, I will get an error mentioning that the kind of memory that data occupies is quite high. But while using Pyspark, I will not get that, because Pyspark is dependent on SQL, and SQL can process a lot of data. So this is one example that I can show you. The second example could be something like maybe the population. I can get the mean, and maybe there's something similar to what we have here. So I'll paste that here, and then instead of average bedrooms, I'll change it to population, and then we can run that. So we get the average population. So the main thing I want you to understand here for today is how do you import your data. So you use spark.read.csv to read in your data. And before reading in your data, the first thing you need to do is you need to import Spark session, and you need to create a Spark session. The reason as to why we are typing in here spark.read_csv is because we created these Spark variable up here. So if I change this to something like sk, you'll note that this part will be highlighted, and it will give me an error saying that Spark is not defined. And if I change this to sk again, you'll see that everything will be running. So what we are creating here is just a variable called Spark that has our Spark session initiated in it. Okay, and it's just like initiating a machine learning library. So like when we were creating a linear regression model, we said something like let LR be equal to linear regression, something like that, and then we enclose the bracket. So you can note the similarities that we have here. So here we have linear regression, then here we have our Spark session. And then after importing your data, what do you do next? So you create a temporary SQL view. So you type in your df, so which is the data frame that you've loaded up here, and this is a Spark data frame. So the difference between a Spark data frame and a pandas data frame is the amount of memory that is consumed. and the output here you can see is also different. So a pandas data frame will look like a CSV file output, while here for Spark data frames you can see we have lines separating values that we have in our data. So you can note those differences. And then we pass in our data frame, then we create or replace temporary view, and we give that temporary view a name. So after we've created our temporary SQL view, what do we do next? So we follow these SQL code syntax for Pyspark to write in our SQL queries. So you just type in spark.sql, open the triple quotation mark, and then inside that type in your SQL query, and then at the end just type in .show to clearly see the output of your SQL query. So there are different things you can try out, and you can check them out here on the Pyspark documentation website. So you can click on Spark, go to homepage. After going to homepage, click on getting started, and then here you'll see a list of things you can do. So what you will do is you will click on this link that is saying working with SQL, and you'll get to see some of the SQL queries you can use here. But since you've learned SQL, this should not be maybe a hard task for you. So you can go ahead and upload datasets that you used when you are learning your SQL classes, and then try reuse those queries that you used in class to confirm if you will be getting similar outputs that we have here. So the only problem you'll have here is you can't create views that you created when learning your SQL sessions. So you'll have to work with these views that we create this way. Yeah, and that brings us to the end of today's session. So tomorrow we will continue with this part of Spark. So during the day I'll try find a dataset that we can import here, a dataset that is big, and then we will fit a machine learning model using that dataset. So yeah, that brings us to the end of today's session, not unless you have questions. Yes, Benson.
Okay, maybe mine is just a clarification.
Yes.
So for this for Spark, it
Yes.
still uses Python.
Yeah, it's using Python, but it allows you to analyze your data using SQL queries. So that's the only difference here.
So the point at which you use Spark is when the data is too big.
Yeah, the point where you are using Spark is when the data is too big.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it the same also for Hadoop? Though I've never used it, but I'm
Yeah,
just keen to
it's
use.
the
I
same.
noticed-
So you can see it's Apache Hadoop, but and then if we go here, it's written Apache Spark. So they are simply the same, but using different, maybe different integrations. So Hadoop, I guess you'll have to download a software that you'll have to use, but the only advantage that you have when using Spark is it's a Python API. Yeah.
Okay, that is all.
Okay. So Hadoop might be a little bit complicated for someone who is new. So we will recommend you use Spark. Yeah. Anyone else with a question? And another thing you can see here is the supported platforms are only GNU and Linux platforms, and these are Linux command that we have here. So it means that when you are working with Hadoop, you'll have to maybe have a Linux subsystem installed in your Windows device, which will maybe require you to like install another operating system in your PC, or maybe have a MacBook. Yeah, so that's the only disadvantage, and that's the reason as to why we are sticking to Spark. Yeah, anyone else with a question? Okay, so if you have no other questions, that will be the end of our session for today. So tomorrow we will continue on with Pyspark, and so what I'll do is I'll skip these other parts that we have here, so you can check maybe things like plotting data, how you can plot Pyspark data. And so I'll skip that because it basically takes you back to pandas, because you will have reduced your Spark data frames to being pandas data frames, and then you can visualize them. So the only part that we will go and look at is on the Pyspark machine learning part. So it's missing from this documentation that we have here, because this is just the intro part. I'll share another documentation that we have on Pyspark, and that's for the machine learning end. So we will take more time on the machine learning part because it's somehow a little bit complicated as compared to what we have here, because this is quite direct. You just type in spark.sql.show. So for Spark ML, we will have to learn how do we convert categorical variables to being numeric, how do we scale our data using Pyspark, how do we feed the model, and how do we evaluate the model using Pyspark. So we will have to discuss that in the next session. So that's all for today. Thank you for joining. So let me upload the YouTube video.